Hey, this is Clark Madsen. I'm the medical director for the Ogden Marathon this year, and I'm here with Dr. Scharmann to talk about some marathon day preparation with you. It's my great fortune to be able to introduce him. He's been my mentor, and he's been the medical director at the marathon since its very first one here in Ogden. And he's going to talk to us today about how to plan to have the most successful marathon day possible. So let's turn it over to him.
Hi, welcome. As you know, this is going to be a little bit different experience this year with a virtual marathon. And if you think about it, this should be the most fun you've ever had running a marathon because you set all the rules.
That's what we're hoping here. So with this being kind of a different marathon, what should our runners do to prepare the day or the night before their race? What should they be doing to prepare?
Well, most of the marathon runners have dabbled in races before, so they have a little bit of an idea of a pre-race protocol. The carbo loading thing kind of went out the window a while back, and now we just ask that you increase your carbohydrates in your diet the week before, but not just pig out on it the night before. Obviously, getting a lot of rest, keeping well hydrated during the week is really important. But with one caveat, if you're just hydrating with free water the whole time, you can actually kind of flush out your kidney's ability to concentrate your urine if you're not careful. So you want to make sure that you're also supplementing with some electrolytes and sodium during the week as you're hydrating yourself.
Now, one of the things we're concerned about this year is usually there's some medical tents and aid stations along the course. Since you're running your own course this year, what are some things you'd recommend to our runners to set up ahead of time?
So as far as a medical tent goes, nobody this year should end up in the medical tent. That should be a given. As far as hydrating, a little of this has to do with how you've been practicing and how you've been training leading up to this. How often do you feel like you need a drink? I mean, for goodness sakes, you could have someone with a water bottle and a bicycle follow you the entire time this time, and you could just take a drink whenever you felt like it was necessary, or something that had even some carbohydrates in it. Generally, we're recommending somewhere between 7 and 12 ounces about every hour that you're out running. And that would be in addition to some electrolyte beverage that you're using with that fluid.
Another thing is, we here in Ogden are lucky enough to have one of the most beautiful routes, marathon routes in the whole world. This year it's a little different. You're going to kind of be creating or going on your own route. Any recommendations for how to set up yourself for success in picking your marathon route?
Well, first of all, know that the canyon will not be closed, so don't try running down the canyon at any time. From what I understand, the Gold Foundation has a website where they've mapped out some example courses that you could choose from, and if you get on their website, you can choose one of their courses. But obviously, when you're preparing your course, it can be anything. We were just talking about some guy that was running a marathon, running loops around a patio for 26 miles at his home versus something that you've set out on the street. So mark it out. Make sure that it is a good environment for you. There is no reason to throw, unless you're a masochist, to throw in big hills, either uphill or probably even more problematic downhills, especially if you're not used to doing them. You could do this entire run on dirt trails if you wanted to. So I think the main thing is the time of day. One of the problems that we often see with the Ogden Marathon in particular, because it's early in the spring, is most of the people have been training in the early morning hours through the winter, so it's never been over 50 degrees probably in any of their training events. And yet, as you know, the start of the marathon can be in the 30s, even with snow and ice, and you can end up with temperatures in the 70s during the last 3 or 4 miles of the race, the way it is usually run. And that's where we ironically tend to see some of our heat exhaustion and heat stroke cases is in that last couple of miles. So make sure that you include a time of day that is consistent with how you've been training, so you don't have to worry about the heat if the temperature's high that particular day. And also make sure that it's shaded so that you're not out blistering yourself in the sun and having to worry about heat exhaustion.
All right, and any last thoughts about, if you're not feeling great after the marathon, when it's time to seek medical help?
Well, the things that usually are brought to your attention are injuries that have developed throughout the race, either calf strains, sometimes even stress fractures can show up at that time. A lot of below the waist, of course, overuse things that have gone on, whether it be muscle strains or tendons. So just be aware of that. You have the advantage of, if you're starting to feel something, to walk for a little while before you pick up running again. I mean, you don't have any competition next to you, unless, of course, you created that with the group that you're doing it with. The other thing that often happens are the more physiologic injuries, like heat exhaustion or heat stroke or GI issues where we're having stomach cramps and that kind of thing. So make sure that when you're consuming beverages or any kind of calories during this time, that you're using substances if you've tried before, they're tried and true, and they don't bother you. So please don't start anything new the day of the race. I mean, most runners know that that's a no-no, even though if it sounds like a good idea. And make sure that if you start to have an issue, whether it be nausea or diarrhea, that you have the luxury of taking a break to get that resolved and then get back on the circuit, whatever it is you're doing. This is a great opportunity to do a marathon in terms of laps, so that you can maybe do 5K, 10K laps of some course that has a good environment for you, and that way you can have a water break every time you go around if needed, or twice when you go around. So like I said, this should be one of the funnest marathons that you've ever ran. You have total control of your terrain, your pace, your hydration, your nutrition. No one should end up in the medical tent in this race.
Well, I totally agree with that. So this has been Dr. Madsen and Dr. Scharmann here. We're with McKay Sports Medicine, and we're wishing you a good marathon. And contact us if you have any problems with your race. But otherwise, good luck out there.
Have fun.